Hey everybody, thanks for pressing play. In this video, I want to show you around these two cars here. So the idea of this video is actually to give you the differences in terms of specifications between what's called a Comfort Plus and an Executive Plus in a Hyundai Bayon. And Brian is my name. If there's any information you want on either of these cars, call, text, WhatsApp 086 843 1945. We are Fitzpatrick's Garage Kildare, a family run business in operation for almost 70 years. So like I was saying to you, this video is more about just comparing the differences. If you want to know more about kind of features on the Bayon and how it sits in terms of a product line, this video here, that's going to run through basically how the car measures up against maybe an i20 and a Kona, and just how it sits or how I perceive it to sit. If you want to find this on my channel, just look for Brian Doolan at Fitzpatrick's Garage Kildare. To do a proper comparison, I think it's important actually to understand what's in the entry model first. And actually there's going to be some people that obviously they're aiming at the entry model, so they don't care what the differences are. So let's have a look at this entry model. The design of the car really doesn't change, as you'd imagine, so it's got the same sort of daytime running lights up high. I think they're really funky, and then the headlights over here, they're a really cool and distinctive looking shape. The front end of the car, it's really, like, I suppose if you look at things like the Kona and the Santa Fe, new Tucson, they have a kind of similar theme in terms of how they look, with these kind of daytime running lights up high and then the headlights built down into the bumper. And it's quite stylish overall. Other things I noticed then, there's nice garnish along here, which is a brushed aluminium finish, and it's just got that big mouth at the front, which I think makes it look aggressive, but not in a really sharp way. It's just pretty cool looking when you see it on the road. The engine in this car is 1.2, and actually the other model, Deluxe Plus, is also 1.2. So both Comfort Plus and Deluxe Plus have the exact same driving characteristics, but we'll have a look at that when we drive. The wheels in the car then, they are a 15-inch wheel, and the tyres that come from the factory are a Michelin tyre, and I have to say I am a massive fan of Michelin tyres. I think they're really, really good. Down the side of the car then, everything's colour coded, things like door handles and wing mirrors. And if you see up top along through here as well, there's also roof rails which have been retained as well. In terms of the way the car sits or compares to other cars, I do have another video that will detail that a lot better, and it compares it to the i20 and compares it to the Kona. But to give you a more brief overview, the easiest way I can put it is similar sort of height to an i20, not as high as a Kona. The legroom is really good in the back, but the boot is a lot bigger. So it's like buying maybe a car that's around the size of an i20, a Corsa or a Yaris or something like that, but a much bigger boot. So in my head, I think I'm kind of comparing this to more like what I've seen in Skodas, where you had things like the Fabia and the Fabia Combi. I think in a similar way, this feels to me like an i20 Combi, more like an estate version of an i20, but not quite. So yes, totally contradicting myself when I said that there, but that's what it feels like. It's not really aimed at being an estate car, but for me, it feels like an i20 size vehicle with a much bigger, more significant boot. And it has been a problem over the years where someone might kind of get to a point where they want to downsize in a car, or they might have a young family and they don't really want a big car. So the boot has always been a problem, would stop them buying something like an i20 or a Polo or something like that, because the boot just wasn't big enough. So this is kind of going to tap into that segment, I think. So in terms of the boot then, it is much bigger than an i20, and it's much bigger actually than the Kona. So you'll see it's quite deep. And down through there, then there will be a spare wheel, a little bit of anchorage over here, but it's a very, very generous boot. It's really funky and really distinctive, and it's kind of like nothing else I've seen on the road for a while. Just look at the way the lights are in the rear, that angle. So lights along through here. I wish the light bar lit up. I don't think there is an option on any of them to do that. Definitely not in Ireland, but even in Europe I haven't seen that. It would be a cool idea, but obviously it's going to increase the price of the car, so they felt it wasn't necessary. Down along the bottom then, again, if you remember on the front, there was some brushed aluminium garnish. Again, the rear bumper has the same idea too. And then in terms of the rear of the car, along through here, there is child lock over here. There's a manual window along through there. 3 head restraints, 3 3-point safety belts, ISOFIX over here, ISOFIX over here. And then it's a dark, hard-wearing black material, so that should be pretty easy for people to keep clean. Sitting into the back of the car, so I'm 6 foot. This is the kind of headroom I'm going to have, so that is comparable to something like an i30 or something along them size. And actually, to be fair, legroom sitting behind myself is really, really good. So again, I would compare that, not quite as wide, but definitely in terms of length and height, it feels like about an i30 Opel Astra, that size of a car. So I do honestly believe that this can cater, and maybe in a European way, maybe in Ireland, I'm not sure if we do this as much, look for family cars which are smaller, but definitely in Europe, there's people that will not want a large car. They might live in cities, they might be stuck for parking, but they still need a car that can do all the family stuff. Sorry, I was just focusing on the electric windows for no reason while I was talking. Height adjustable seat over through here. A rake reach steering function, so that means it goes in and out, and it goes up and down as well. And if you combine that then with the height adjustable seat, and the support that's in it as well. And actually the seats, there's some really excellent peripheral support. Surprisingly good actually. What I mean by here, you see how far that comes out, and look at actually, wow, I actually never noticed that before. There is a massive bucket. That's really supportive actually when you're sitting in a car on corners, and if you're driving the car on a little bit, there's great peripheral support. It stops you moving around in the seat. But I will admit, there is going to be some people that, if depending how they slide across into a car, I love peripheral support. I think it looks really cool, but I actually think there is a practical element because it keeps you right in the middle of the seat. But sometimes people will find that difficult for access, and it depends how you access a car. If you're someone that slides across, depending on your height, the way you bend your hips and all that, may or may not be a problem. Vast majority of people, it'll be absolutely fine. And I think it'll be outweighed by the benefits once you actually sit in the car. So over here, nice big clocks. I really like them. I like red on a clock. So in through there is trip information. So up and down along here, driver's attention level, speed limit warning if you're exceeding speed limits. The attention basically just if you're swaying on the road, it'll warn you. And the lane keep assist function as well, which basically means that it will try and keep you dead center on the lane and avoid you drifting over the line if you temporarily lose concentration. Back over through here, so again I'm just using this button here. We got fuel economy, and we got a speedo in through there as well. And the third menu then, you can just change various bits and pieces in the car. So you can enable certain functions, like say for example high beam assist. The headlights are automatic, right? So what that means basically is you can leave them on auto, and then you also have the auto function here. So one of those auto functions means daytime, nighttime, they will come on themselves, and the other auto function means when you meet traffic, they'll dip. When you go into a country area, they'll go full by themselves. So that's pretty cool. This model will also have cruise control, so you can set cruise from there and then set it, take your foot off the pedal. Really handy on a motorway, and the car will maintain the speed without you having to tire yourself by keeping your foot on the accelerator. Bluetooth is in through there. There's a little bit of storage here. There's drinks holders over here. Gearbox is 5 gears forward. There's some storage in through there. 12 volt outlet here, USB here. And then there's heating controls here with air conditioning as well. Central locking's there. And the radio, it might look really basic, but I am a massive fan of basic radios, because guess what? You turn this on, you turn it up and down, you press 1, 2, 3 if you want various stations. You can go through USB or Bluetooth or whatever you want through there. It does everything you need it to do. It's really straightforward. I like that. And the dash is really stylish as well, and modern. And actually where the radio is, it's kind of in your driver's eye line, so you don't get distracted too much when you're driving if you want to look down that way. So hopefully you got a better idea now what's standard on the car in this over here, what's called a Comfort Plus. Let's start looking at the differences when we move into Executive Plus. The first visible difference I can see, the grille, both actually front ends of the car, they look really similar. However, if you look along here, this seems to be a dark plastic, whereas this has a shiny metallic finish. After that though, visibly that is the only difference I can see to distinguish the two cars on the front. The big difference I find on the side, over here we said there was a 15-inch steel wheel with a wheel trim, whereas this one is a nice 16-inch alloy wheel, and it's diamond cut, so it's shiny and reflective. Again, Michelin tires. And the other thing as well then is if we look along here, there's some chrome along the bottom of the window, which is not on the first model, but it is standard on the second model. And the other thing as well is then if we look at the rear windows, and all the windows in that car in Comfort Plus, they have a UV tint, whereas this one here has UV tint, but it's also got a privacy glass set up in the rear, where the rear windows and around through here, they are much darker. In terms of the rear end of the vehicle, well, I'd actually go as far as saying from what I can see, they're pretty much indistinguishable. The only thing I will see here though, and again this relates to the front grille, you see this colour of plastic. It's a kind of a grey black, which goes around the wheel arches, which goes around the bottom of the doors and onto the front grille. It's a much darker belt line along here, so this is a much darker plastic, and especially around the wheel arches down along through the bottom, which again links in with the front of the car. So I suppose what we're saying, that kind of belt and shoulder line on the car is much darker on this Executive Plus than it is on the Comfort Plus. Not a major thing, depending on the outside of the car. You may or may not notice the difference as much, but I think things like the wheels, the little bit of chrome and the tinted windows, they are probably easier to distinguish. The boot in the Executive Plus is absolutely identical to what we've seen in the Comfort Plus, so there's no differences to show you there. One thing though, straight away when we get into the back, there is now an electric window on the rear. Yes, the interior will seem a little bit darker in the rear, but that is useful if you have kids. The material on the seat is definitely different as well. So if you see, it has this design along here. Again, a dark grey material, but just to refresh your memory, the Comfort Plus almost looks a little bit darker, and it has this type of design in through the centre, whereas over through here then, It's a slightly different colour. It's not a major difference. Some people might argue that they prefer the look of it, but I don't think it's a major difference. But what is a major difference down here, there is a USB connector in the back. Size is going to be identical, so there's no point in showing it because there is no difference there. But the USB connector is definitely going to be useful for kids in the back. Just to remind ourselves, up front, we had those really nice supportive seats that we talked about with the same sort of material finish. And again, over here then, same type of supportive seat when we move into Executive Plus, but just again, a different design pattern. One thing that's immediately obvious that I see, the pedals over here in the Comfort Plus model, they were a normal rubber pedal. Stuttering with my words there. Whereas these ones are a nice alloy finish. From the point of view of driver convenience, the seat and steering wheel, they're adjustable in the exact same way. One thing I do see, however, is where the drinks holders are here, that's the same, but there's an armrest in through there with some storage as well. Whereas if we remember, on the Comfort Plus model, there was some storage back through there, but you didn't have the armrest. Big thing for me then is going to be the clocks. So if you look along here, there was analog clocks that we saw on this Comfort Plus model, whereas this one here has a much nicer large screen in through the center, and that is completely digital as well. What's cool about this one is it allows you to do a little bit more customization compared to the other one. So the cluster, you can actually go in and change the appearance of the cluster. So that's really nice. Various different settings up through there. And then after that, just when you're toggling through the menus, I mean, it's giving you the same information as you saw on the other one, but it's just way more elaborate looking. It's much nicer and much more modern. I mean, the lane keep assist we saw in the Comfort Plus model, and things like the speed limit recognition over here, we also saw that as well. But again, it's just the layout is much more pleasurable looking. One other thing that I see here, I'm always dubious about this in Hyundais because sometimes it does disappear, but at the moment on an Executive Plus model, you have a heated steering wheel, and you also get heated seats on the front as well. In around that gear knob area, there was a bit of storage in through here. There was a 12-volt outlet, and there was a USB in through here. But when we move from the Comfort Plus over here to the Executive Plus, you get wireless charging down through here. Same 12-volt and USB setup, except for you get another USB connector. That actually makes 3 overall in the car. The heating controls are very straightforward. They're analog, they're easy to use. I don't think that's a bad thing in the Comfort Plus. But when we move from Comfort Plus over to Executive, they become digital. So again, you're using, instead of twisty, turny knobs, you're using these buttons up and down, front and rear windscreen demisters, where you want the air to blow. So it's just a digital setup with automatic air conditioning. Automatic air conditioning being something that gets glanced over. Basically, if you get into the car and say, I want 22 degrees, the car will get to 22 degrees by itself. If you let the window down and cold air comes in or warm air comes in, obviously it upsets it. There's a sensor that will make the heater and speed of the heater and the level of the heater adjust, again, to bring the cabin back to that 22 degrees that you wanted. In the Comfort Plus then, I said there was a really straightforward, easy to use radio, and I still stick to that. But over here we have a much bigger screen in through here. So yes, is it cool? Absolutely. There is a reverse camera. There's parking sensors as well. So camera and sensors on the Executive Plus, which are not on the Executive model. This one after that then will also allow you to use things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if you want to use Google Maps. At a very basic level, however, the entry model will do everything pretty much beside the... Okay, well actually that's not true. The entry model will do things like USB music, it'll take phone calls, it'll play music via Bluetooth. So will this, but I suppose the big thing with this is the fact that you have an interactive screen that you can look at, and things like the camera is there, and things like the maps are there. That's probably the big thing. And okay, fair enough, you know, it looks really nice as well. Visually, one other feature actually I noticed is there's indicators on the Comfort Plus built into the wing, whereas they are actually built in to the wing mirror on the Executive Plus model. And actually one thing that's come up in conversation, surprisingly a bit actually, this screen is an 8-inch screen, this one here is a 10.25-inch screen. One other thing that's actually not on the Comfort Plus model but is on the Executive Plus, you have this e-call function along through here. So that means basically if you had an accident, it will send out a warning and you'll be contacted by emergency services just if you need any assistance. Other things, and I'm starting to nitpick here, I need the actual sheet because we're getting small things. That is a rubber aerial, whereas this one here has a shark fin style aerial. The mirrors on this one here, which is Comfort Plus, are manual, sorry, that's not true. They're electric, but you have to manually fold them in and out with your hand. On this Executive Plus model, we got a button so you can electronically pull them in. On the Comfort Plus model, we saw there was automatic lights, but the wipers were manually activated. Again, Executive Plus, automatic lights, but the wipers are also automated as well. So there's a little sensor up here, and when it detects rain, it'll activate the wipers when it's raining. One thing specifically on executive, and I can't really show it to you today, but if you see along through here, there's lighting there, there's lighting in through here, there's lighting in through there. Fair enough, absolutely crap, you can't see it during the day, but at night time the cabin's lovely when you have that ambient light in it. It looks really, really nice. And after that then, there's a couple of safety features which are going to be hard to show you. Driver attention warning. So actually, well, we saw that already, that's fine. Lead car departure warning. So if you're stuck in traffic and you just go daydreaming for a sec, the car in front of you pulls away, it gives you a little warning to say the car in front of you is pulled away, so cop on and get going. After that then, there's also ambient hill control assist. So obviously on a hill it's going to stop you from rolling backwards when you take your foot off the brake pedal and put it onto the accelerator. And then after that, forward collision avoidance. If you're doing under 30 kilometers an hour and something stops in front of you and you haven't touched the brake pedal or any of the pedals, the car will sense that you haven't reacted in time to something that stopped in front of you and it's going to try and stop you. So at about 30 kilometers an hour, it'll probably tap something. At about 20 kilometers an hour, it'll probably stop you short. Anywho, I think the best thing to do is go for a drive. So I'm just going to use this one here because it's running. They drive the exact same, so there's going to be no difference that way. So we'll go for a drive and just show you what that's like. In terms of how it feels on the road, there's a lovely gear shifter on these. It's very, very like the i20 gear shifter. Well, actually, it's probably the same one, but it just feels really nice, really precise, really slick and easy to use. And actually, the steering wheel feels really nice as well. It's chunky and thick in your hand. And then in terms of how the car behaves, so around town, it's nice and easy and nimble to use, but it sits nicely on a back road like this where there's lots of kind of bumps and compressions on the road, so it's quite comfortable. On this model here, it's Executive Plus, so I love these big, bright dash clocks. But in terms of sitting in the car and looking around the dash overall, it's really nice. Like I was saying, the radio and the clocks are in a nice high position, so they're right in your eye line. So it's pretty functional and it looks pretty good as well. Like I was saying to you, the car just sits lovely on a road like this where you're going up and down through bumps. I actually find these quite sporty, just like the i20. And the engine is peppy and responsive as well for a 1.2 engine with no turbo. The safety function we talked about, lane keep assist, well actually that works really, really nice. So if you see in this case, we're drifting off to the left, now the steering's after copping on and it's bringing us back to the centre, so it's a very useful feature. For me, to describe the car, it sits really comfortable. I like the suspension and it's zippy as well. The engine is quite responsive. But in terms of parking and stuff, like we were saying to you, this is a small car with a big boot. So when it comes to parking, you've got aids such as a reverse camera and also parking sensors. But because the car is not overly cumbersome and big, it's quite an easy car to park. And I think that's going to be important to some people, because when you're buying a car like this, you don't want something that's big. You want something that's nimble and agile and easy to use. But like I keep saying, which still has the access to the big boot as well. Anyway, so hopefully after this video now, you got a better idea of the difference between Comfort Plus and Executive Plus. And the video really was just to show someone that's buying the car, right, if I look at Comfort Plus, you know, is it going to do everything I need, or are the features I really wanted in Executive Plus? And it just gives you a better idea of which one to go for. Anyway, if there's any information you want, 086 843 1945. If you want information about trading in a car, or if you want information about finance, or you know, the kind of deals we do, or the warranty, which is 5 years, and what it entails and all that kind of stuff, just give us a shout. And for some people, if they're in a different country and they're watching on YouTube and I've left something out, just let me know in the comment section below and I'll definitely do my best to address your question. Anyway, thanks a million for watching, guys.